Okay, so let's get into this. The figure we're profiling today is a study in just absolute head-spinning paradox.
That's the perfect way to put it. You read the accounts and it's like you're reading about two different people.
On one hand, the sources paint this picture of a lion guru, a man who was ferocious in debate, who, absolutely terrified the really religious establishment in India. He was like a general commanding an army.
A general is exactly the right image. And you have to sort of delete that default mental picture of a holy man.
Right.
He wasn't interested in being some peaceful, meditating saint under a tree. He was looking to pick a fight with illusion. He was aggressive about the truth.
But then you flip the coin, and the same sources, sometimes on the same page, describe him as having this internal vision that was so soft, so tender, he saw the spiritual world in literally everything.
It's a huge contrast.
A revolutionary who embraces modern tech when everyone else is, rejecting it, but he himself lives in a leaky hut and basically starves himself for a decade. We're talking about Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī.
And really, to understand the modern face of Vaishnavism, or, the Hare Krishna movement, you have to understand him. He's the architect. He's the one who drew up the blueprints that Śrīla Prabhupada eventually built.
There's this one anecdote in the research that I think just frames this whole discussion perfectly. It's what I call the problem with seeing. It really makes you question how you perceive anything.
Oh, yeah. The story with the professor.
Yes.
So this university professor comes to meet him, and he wants to, establish his credentials, show he's in the know. So he starts bragging a little.
Okay.
He says, oh, I knew your father, the great Saint Bhaktivinoda Thakura. I used to visit him. I saw him eat. I saw him all the time.
Which to you or me sounds like a pretty valid claim. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. That's usually proof.
Exactly. That's what we think of as evidence. But Bhaktisiddhanta didn't smile. He didn't say, oh, that's nice. He actually got angry. He called the man a liar right to his face.
Wow. That seems incredibly harsh. The guy was physically there.
But Bhaktisiddhanta's point was surgical. He told him, you never saw Bhaktivinoda Thakura. His whole argument was that you can't see a spiritual person with your retinas.
So if you just saw an old man eating some rice...
You didn't see the saint. You only see a person like that through their sound, through their message, through serving them. Physical sight is an illusion.
So spiritual vision is auditory, not optical.
Precisely. You see by hearing. So that's the first major takeaway here. He was trying to shatter that professor's whole mundane worldview.
Well, our mission today is to try and see him properly through the records. And the timeline, it starts with him as this child prodigy. The astronomy details are just wild.
Oh, he was a genius. In what's called Jyotisha Vedic astronomy, he mastered the Surya Siddhanta, which is this incredibly dense ancient text.
So much so that by the time he was a young man, the University of Calcutta offered him the chair of astronomy.
Let's just pause on that. The chair of astronomy, that's a career, that's prestige, a salary for life.
That's everything.
And he turned it down.
Yeah.
Flat out.
But why? If you have this incredible gift, why not use it?
Because of how he defined time. He reasoned that if he took that job, he'd spend his life calculating mundane time eclipses, planetary movements, seconds and hours.
Okay.
He wanted to deal with the eternal. He saw that career as a huge distraction from what he called the real work of the soul. He didn't want to measure the walls of the prison. He wanted to get out.
The level of discipline here is almost frightening. It reminds me of that story, The Mango Vow.
Oh, it's a true story, and it tells you everything about his psychology.
So he was just a little kid.
Tiny.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 or 5. There were mangoes in the house meant to be offered to the deity first, but he's a toddler, so he just, grabs one and eats it.
As a 4-year-old would.
Right. But his father, Bhaktivinoda, didn't just laugh it off. He chastised him. He said, you have committed an offense. You ate what was for the Lord.
And the kid just internalized it.
Completely. He said, I am an offender. I am a thief. I will never eat a mango again. And he never did for his entire life.
Even 40 years later, if someone offered him one.
He'd say, no, I am an offender. It shows you he didn't make excuses for himself. He held himself to the standard of absolute purity, even for a mistake he made as a toddler.
And that standard gets ramped up to an almost impossible level in the period they call the forging of the weapon. This is from 1905 to 1914.
This is the Mahavrata, the Great Vow.
I want to break down the math on this because it's easy to just gloss over. He vows to chant 1 billion holy names.
It's a staggering number.
To finish that in about a decade, you're talking, what, 300,000 names a day?
It eats up almost all of your waking hours, chanting continuously from before sunrise until late at night, every single day, for 9 years.
And his living conditions weren't exactly a five-star hotel.
No. He was at the Yogapitha, Lord Chaitanya's birthplace, but back then it was undeveloped, swampy land. He lived in a grass hut, slept on the bare floor.
And the diet.
Rice, cooked in water, once a day. And here's the kicker. No salt.
Why no salt? That just seems cruel.
It's about burning out any taste for sense pleasure. Salt makes things palatable. He wasn't eating for pleasure. He was just keeping the machine running, detaching completely from the tongue.
There's that detail about the leaky roof that just, it's so vivid.
Right. The monsoon comes, the grass roof is failing, water is pouring in.
Wow.
Anyone else stops chanting and fixes the roof.
Of course.
But he calculated that fixing the roof would take time away from his vow. So he just opened an umbrella inside the hut, held the umbrella with one hand, and chanted with the other.
That image. The man under an umbrella inside a leaking hut, chanting for a decade. That's the lion in training.
That's it exactly. He was charging the battery. He knew he had this massive war to fight against the caste system, against illusion. He was building the spiritual energy he would need.
Which brings us to 1918. He's 44. The vow is done. And he decides to take sannyasa, the renounced order. But even this, he does it his own way.
It was a very controversial move. Traditionally, you have to accept sannyasa from another living sannyasi. But Bhaktisiddhānta looked around and he saw a lot of corruption.
He didn't see anyone he respected enough.
Pretty much.
Oh.
So he sat before a photo of his guru, Gara Kishora Dasa Babaji, and initiated himself. He just saw it as a necessity.
He needed that social standing to start his mission?
Right, the Gaudiya math. But he warned his followers. He said, don't become voluptuary.
Voluptuaries, that's a great word.
People who live for sense pleasure. He saw so many monks just using their robes to get free food and respect. He told his disciples, I have become a sweeper. I'm here to sweep away illusion. Don't use this movement to get comfortable.
And this is where the paradox just explodes. He's a renunciant, he's lived in a mud hut, but when he starts preaching, he fully embraces the modern world. This brings us to the great drum.
The Brihat Mridanga. This is one of his most brilliant, truly innovative ideas.
Explain the metaphor for us.
Okay, so a mridanga is that traditional clay drum they use in Kirtan. You play it, and maybe the block hears you. The range is limited.
Right.
Bhaktisiddhānta looked at the printing press, which was heavy industrial tech back then, and said, that is the great drum.
Because the range is infinite.
Exactly. You print a magazine, it can go to London, to Tokyo, it can travel through time. A book printed today can be read in 500 years. He argued the press was way more effective than the clay drum.
He even held, installation ceremonies for the machines.
He did. He called the press the Bhagavat Yantra, God's machine. He put flower garlands on it, treat it like a deity in the temple. He saw the machine as a living part of Krishna's service.
Which leads into his whole philosophy of yukta vairagya. Because renunciation usually means walking away from things.
Right. Traditional renunciation is money is bad, cars are bad, just reject it all. He said no. Yukta vairagya is practical. The principle is utility. If a car helps you preach to more people than walking does, you use the car. The car serves the mission.
So it's not about the object, it's about the purpose.
Correct. He was the first sadhu in his line to use motorcars, and people criticized him heavily for it. Look at this luxury sadhu. He didn't care. He sent disciples to London and told them, don't wear robes, wear suits, be respectable.
There's that story about the toilet. That's a perfect example.
Yes, at Radhakunda. This is the most sacred, rustic, traditional place you can imagine. And he renovates a building there and installs a modern, Western-style flush toilet.
The locals must have lost their minds.
They were scandalized. You're bringing this Western filth here. But his point was hygiene. It was efficiency. If you're sick and uncomfortable, you can't serve God well. He refused to be primitive just to look holy.
He really did not care about public opinion. Which, brings us to the rotten mango story.
This is the lion in full force. It shows how he dealt with philosophies he saw as dangerous. He was on a train with a Mayavadi sadhu.
And that's the philosophy that God is impersonal, we're all God, that sort of thing.
Which he considered spiritual suicide. So they're on the train, and there's a crate of mangoes that have gone completely bad. Just rotten.
Yeah.
Bhaktisiddhānta grabs the crate and basically forces this other sadhu to eat 4 of them.
He physically forced him.
He intimidated him into it. Yeah, it was like bitter medicine to humble him. And after eating 4 rotten mangoes, The sadhu fell at his feet and promised he'd never preach impersonalism again.
That is definitely not a turn-the-other-cheek approach.
Not at all. He believed if someone is spreading what he saw as poison, you have to stop them. Sometimes with logic, sometimes with rotten mango.
He also fought the caste system.
Yeah.
Right. The idea that you had to be born a brahmana to be a guru.
Oh, he demolished it. At this huge assembly at Bulakai, it was a masterclass in rhetoric. He gets up and starts praising the brahmanas, quoting all the scriptures about how great they are.
Brightening them up.
Totally. They're all cheering. They think he's on their side. Then, once he has them, he pivots. He starts quoting all the verses that say a true devotee, a Vaishnava, is higher than a Brahmana by birth, and then he drops the hammer.
What was the challenge?
He challenged them. He said, if you claim superiority by birth, then trace your seminal lineage all the way back to the beginning of creation and prove it's unbroken.
Which is impossible.
Completely impossible. The whole assembly went silent. He shattered the idea that spiritual authority is in your DNA. It's in your devotion.
So we have this man who has built a mission, fought the establishment, printed books. But this is where the story connects to the modern world, the passing of the torch.
Yes. Without this next relationship, we are not having this conversation. We're talking about his connection with a young man named Abhay Chaudham,
Who the world now knows as Śrīla Prabhupada.
Their first meeting in 1922 is legendary. Abhay is a young supporter of Gandhi, Indian independence, and before they even really introduce themselves, Bhaktisiddhānta gives him an order.
What was it?
He looked at this educated young man and said, you should preach this message of Lord Chaitanya in the English language to the Western world.
And Abhay, he actually argued back.
He did. He said, who will listen to us? We're a subject nation. First we need independence, then people will respect our philosophy.
Which is a valid political point in 1922.
Bhaktisiddhānta just cut right through it. He said, political situations are temporary. The British are here today, gone tomorrow. The soul's suffering is eternal. You don't wait for politics to save a drowning man.
And that convinced him.
Prabhupada later said he was defeated in that first meeting. He accepted him as his master right then and there.
Fast forward to 1935. This is the marble versus books conversation.
A huge moment, a management lesson for the ages. He sees his disciples fighting over rooms in a new marble temple he's built. Who gets the nice room? Who's in charge?
He saw the institution starting to rot from the inside.
Exactly. He turned to Prabhupada and said, fire will burn, agunjavalibi. He meant internal politics would destroy everything. And then he said, if I could sell the marble from this temple and print books, that would be better.
Wow. After spending all that time and money building it.
He realized a temple is static. You have to go to it. But a book goes to you. He told Prabhupada, if you ever get money, print books. He put the information media above the real estate.
And then the final order.
Yeah.
1936, 2 weeks before he passes away.
He writes a letter to Prabhupada. This letter is really the seed of what would become ISKCon. He says it again, that first instruction from 1922. He wrote, I have full confidence that you can explain in English. This will do good to you and to your hearers.
Full confidence. That's a heavy thing to place on someone who was, at the time, just a householder with no money.
But Prabhupada took that letter as his life and soul. That was the order that kept him going when he was penniless in New York City 30 years later.
So let's go to the very end. January 1st, 1937. His departure. We've talked about the lion, the general. But in his final moments, the mood shifts completely.
It's 5:30 in the morning. He's about to leave his body, and he asks one of his disciples, Srila Sridhara Maharaja, to sing a specific song, Sri Rūpa Manjari Pada.
Why that song? What's the significance?
This reveals who he really was. To the world, he's the general. Internally, in his eternal spiritual identity, he saw himself as a maidservant of Rūpa Manjari.
And for listeners who don't know, who is Rūpa Manjari?
In that tradition, she's the head of the maidservants who arrange the most intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna. It's a position of extreme confidential humility. You're not the star. You're the assistant to the assistant.
So the lion persona was a kind of protection.
Exactly. A protection for that soft, tender devotion inside. The song says, the feet of Rūpa Manjari are my real wealth. They are the cooling moon. It was his way of saying, the war is over. I'm going home to serve.
There's also that song Gopinatha mentioned in the sources.
Yes, and that speaks to his teaching on sincerity. The song is a plea. The singer calls himself a wicked materialist, addicted to worldly desires.
which is hard to hear a saint say about himself.
But that's the point. He taught that you don't make progress by pretending you're holy. You make progress by showing your scars. You tell Krishna about your secret envy, your lust. You make God your friend by being totally transparent.
You don't hide the flaws, you offer them up to be removed.
Exactly that.
So if we look at the whole arc, a boy who wouldn't eat a mango because he felt like a thief, a man chanting in a leaky hut for a decade, a general using a printing press to fight illusion, and finally, a humble servant passing a blueprint to the West.
And that blueprint was the books, the Brihat Vridanga. That's his enduring legacy.
I want to leave our listeners with this one last concept from the sources, this idea of the thief. It's a heavy thought to end on, but it kind of wraps everything up.
It is. It challenges our whole identity. We think we're good people, right? Our name is on the deed to the house, the bank account.
We own things.
But his philosophy is, if you claim God's property as your own, you're a thief.
Mm-hmm.
Your body is God's property. Your family, this planet, it's all God's property.
Death is the police.
Death is the police that comes and strips you of all the stolen goods. The guru isn't the police. The guru is the friend who taps you on the shoulder before the police arrive and says, hey, return the property voluntarily. Use it in service. Don't claim it.
If you return it, you're free. If you wait, you lose everything.
Exactly. It kind of changes YOLO to you only leave once, so leave clean.
So here's the final thought I want you to mull over. He argued that the vibration, the book, the sound, the media is more powerful, more real than the physical building, the temple. In a world today that is so obsessed with image, with branding, with physical presence, are we looking for a building to save us? Or are we looking for a vibration?
A powerful question to meditate on.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.